Okay, this meeting is being recorded. I don't know where our little voice went, but I like that. Um, all right, so again, welcome to our quick conversation for the Corequisite Community of Practice. I'm Phyllis Clark. I serve as Associate Director for the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative, and I lead the CoRec Community of Practice as well as the Summer Bridge Community of Practice. And what I want to do right now, I do have a couple of screens just to kind of keep my talking points in line. And at the end of our slides, we're going to jump over to our Jamboard so that we can continue with the discussion that we started in October. And so, and again, don't worry if you weren't here, I promise you'll be able to pick up and play right away. All right, let me get my screen sharing going for you. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. And I'm just gonna stay on this screen. That's okay. Not gonna pop out. All right, so okay, come on. All right, in case you're wondering or needing just a brief review of the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative, we are a team of 3, actually 4 now. Jamie Oleka has joined us on the student basic needs side of the house, but you can see here where clearly our mission is helping to build the capacity of higher ed partners, you all. And so that's why in my emails all the time, if you don't know, you do now, that I like to say in support of you, because that is why I exist on this team. Our big vision is, we like to say, we bring people together to support one another, share new ideas. So really all of the work that we have been involved in over the last 2 years, we celebrate 2 years in October, is about collaboration. And I love how healthcare workforce is using terms like collaboratory. Isn't that cool? And we're also talking about, nurturing a culture of continuous improvement, all of us together. I know you're doing all of this work on your campuses and your sacred spaces right now, but as we do this together at the state level, I mean, a lot of magic is happening, and I think it's so cool. I was on a meeting today listening to the president of Lumina talking about all the moves that we're making in Kentucky, and we are a model for several things. You will probably hear and see more about this in social media, so watch out for that. But the collaborative and our campus partners, here are the 3 big things that we've been called to do, right? Increase completion rates, eliminate these equity gaps, and enhance economic mobility for our students and their families, I like to add on. Okay, so when we focus on first year post-secondary success, here are the 3 big buckets that we are talking about in a number of ways. This community of practice, of course, is focused on gateway core success. There are others that are with transition, I believe, focused on belonging and financial wellness. Okay, so gateway core success for us, you can see here what that is. We've talked about this enough, but what I will say is that a community of practice is serving us a lot differently than 2 years ago, when I think this same group was a working group, a work group. And so, which is why we're kind of doing all the things here and having discussions about several things. We're bringing people in to speak. We are, let's see, planning events, talking about convenings. Those are just some things coming down the pike. And so the most important pieces of what we've been talking about since we started meeting for this academic year is a gateway core success strategic agenda. And or actually, I should say, developing a strategy, and all the agendas will flow out of that. But here are the 3 big things. We have met with, I want to say, 8. We've had 8 different meetings with a number of stakeholders. That started June of this year. And we will be we've moved down this pipeline, and I believe that we are getting ready to share what all of that information looks like. You all have seen it, and I'm going to show it to you again really in just one moment. but now it's ready to move through our Vice President, Melissa Bell, as well as Dr. Thompson. And ultimately, we want to see ourselves having a convening at the end of January. So I'm going to share a little bit more. We don't have dates, but I just wanted you to kind of put that in your back pocket and know that something related to all of that will be coming here a little bit later. I want to say the last 2 weeks of November, we'll be sharing out and maybe even be able to open registration for that. That's an in-person convening that'll be held at CP. All right, but hopefully while I'm talking, you've been able to kind of see what these big overarching strategic objectives are as it relates to strengthening communication and collaboration. You all have talked a lot about centering student needs and removing barriers. And so let's get into what all of those conversations brought us to. I think you've seen this maybe 2 or 3 times now, but what is even more interesting is last meeting, we wanted to see just where you were as a campus, and after kind of getting into the weeds and thinking about this just a little bit, you all joined me on the Jamboard, and you were able to kind of identify some things that were happening on your campus and what was working well. Well, by the time we finished this and talked a little bit about this one little thing here, dead center, it was like 458, 457, something like that. So we've saved those share outs for today. And so what I'd like to do is to jump over to the Jamboard, and it is live right now and editable. And so I'm going to put the link. I'm going to come off for just 1 second, and let's go over there, and that's where we'll finish up our conversation. Before we get there, you're going to see this board again. So if you miss something, I'll show it to you one more time here. But take a look at this. I want you all, you may not have time to really see all of this, but when I send this link back out to you, you'll be able to get to it. But I just wanted you to know, instead of me making 5 or 6 announcements at the end, I'm going to have this in the follow-up email where you can see all of the things that I want you to know, but don't have time to tell you. And you can see the registration links and things like that. So, and feel free to pass this around to somebody else on your teams, your guiding teams, your working teams, and so forth. All right. Okay. Now let's go over to the Jamboard. I'm going to come off of share. All right, so I'm on the Jamboard and I'm picking up the link, making sure that you all don't have to deal with any of that requesting access stuff. Okay. All right, our Jamboard link is in the chat, and I'm going to share my screen. So you can look at this on your device, or if you're just listening in today, it's totally fine. You can see this later and move things around at that point. So now I'm going to go back. And this should be the live Jamboard. Yes, it is. And look at y'all. Y'all made it in. Okay, I did it right. Okay, so let's pick up where we left off. The most glaring thing to me is the fact that under objective number 2, centering students' needs, the prioritizing student voices and qualitative research about the impact of gateway courses on student success. I know that's a lot. But that was the only one that no one from last time was able to connect with. So can we just start there and speak to, you know, we're not necessarily trying to generate ideas or anything around that. If something comes up, wonderful. If not, right now, just let me kind of hear your overall impression and any other comments you'd like to make about that in particular, or whatever else you see here. We can, again, pick up where we left off with the things that you chose. All right, who's first? Who's coming off mute? Any observations? Yay, Jeff, yes.
So we're not collecting or conducting qualitative research per se, but we do collect survey data and student responses. We're just not using that really beyond simple marketing purposes and to balance out the quantitative data that you and I actually talked about earlier this morning. To take a look at, impact, particularly on retention rates for historically marginalized groups and low-income groups.
Yes, thank you for that. Anyone want to piggyback or build upon? Yeah, and if you're feeling like you need to put your sticky note, if you know how to work that little thing over there, they're over here on the toolbar, just click it and it'll add your information and move it to where you want. Okay, any other ideas though around the prioritization of student voices?
Oh, at the community college level, it's sometimes difficult to get student voices. They're very transitory. So if you just send out a mass kind of link, well, you're only going to get really, really strong positive, really, really strong negative feedback. So you're not getting that general, and they don't typically understand the terminology used. I think the terminology is a barrier here to try to get qualitative student data, because we tend to use the words we know, the vocabulary we know that isn't theirs. And so when they start talking about student success, student success is passing a course, not learning the material for them. So that, and I am being broad and generalized here, but I'm saying that's one of the differences is how do you define student success when you're talking about to the students. So I think there's value to it, but I do think it is difficult to do systemically.
I know here at Jefferson, I'm not sure who else in KCTCS does this, but we have a survey that we do that we call the KYSSC. It's a Community College Survey of Student Engagement. And I'm going off the top of my head here, so please, if these numbers are wrong, don't hold it against me. But I do think we only see like 25 to 30% student response rate, and it might even be lower than that. But that is a major tool that we use to get student feedback on gateway courses, library services, advising, just everything across the board. So, I could ask to get more of the data there, or that might be a tool that other institutions could use.
I'd forgotten about that, Brandon. It's very, very good to bring up because I know we use it too. But
researchers actually consider above 20% on survey to be a good response. So it's all relative, right?
But even if we do it, I'm not sure I've seen my institution do anything with the data. Like we may issue the survey, but, and I could be wrong, I'm just not aware of anything that's directly come from it.
Well, let me throw this back out to the group and particularly to Phyllis then. So when we say prioritize student voices, what is CPE hoping will happen? We can think about this from a research perspective, a traditional research perspective, but in the long run, when we're prioritizing those voices, what do you see as being the actual manifestation, the benefit of doing that? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, I think, well, what I'm thinking is that's what we're trying to get to. So there's really no answer for that yet. And when I think about this, it's like, this is squarely on the academic side of the house. So to think of it in these ways is really going to have us operating like, I think Dr. Ed, I think it was you who was talking about really getting into the weeds with the students, right? It was something of that nature. I'm sorry, I can't really quote you.
That's because it probably wasn't very well stated. You know, you have to, you know, you can't from, you know, somebody who grew up several decades earlier than these people, you can't imagine really what they're thinking because you're just as far removed from them as they are from you. So you have to start talking to them before you find out, before you get the perspective that they're coming from. So that's why I don't really know what I'm going to find out or how it can be used. But I think there would be value in that. And
I would agree. And I think, the other piece to this is, what are we finding when we collect this information, right?
Mhm.
If you ask them immediately during this experience or right thereafter versus 6 months later
Months
versus
later.
2 years later, does that perspective change? And
Mhm.
without,
Right.
actually conducting a long-term study, we're hypothesizing at best.
I agree.
I can't remember if this particular bullet came up at the initial in-person meeting where a lot of this was kind of carved out.
Or whether it came from CAOs or one of the other stakeholder meetings that you had.
Yeah. No, I don't remember advisors or CAOs or who else. This group. But
I
yeah,
mean, it may,
so
if you
go ahead.
take it from the context of we need to find out where the students are today, then I think everybody would agree with that versus about how they feel about the impact of gateway courses on student success. Like, I'm not sure I would have even been able to answer that question as a freshman. And I was a very successful college student. But did I understand the impact of my introduction biology class on my student success? I'm just not sure this direction is the most productive for our purpose.
Gotcha. Can we spend a few more minutes delving into that? So what else? What can take the place of this, or how can we maybe think about this a little bit differently? Again, this is not, we still have a couple of meetings to get to, and we're going to meet with the person that's going to be facilitating this rollout as well. So if there are some changes or some new ways to think about something here, this is a good group to maybe, come in with those ideas. Yeah, you go.
So if we're like, what would we replace that with? When I look at the second bullet point, I see about 4 bullet points worth of stuff. That one is pretty dense. It talks about using evidence-based strategies for placement, for co-requisite support, for tutoring, for coaching, and then the post-its are covering even more. I've forgotten what it is. So, right. So I'm like, that is my suggestion for, like, if we flesh that out into several bullet points, that'd be a little bit more manageable.
Well, and here's the reality too. If we want to ensure this is kind of a global perspective, we have to have the same questions that we're operating from in all of our programs. Because if we have disparate questions that we're each asking because they're relevant for our students or our campus, then we still only have bits and pieces of the puzzle and not a comprehensive picture.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so the ultimate purpose is something I think we'd have to really drill down into, because if we don't know that, we don't know what questions to ask.
Well, I don't think they can answer the course of how could the gateway courses be better or anything like that. I think it's all personal. I think placement is almost irrelevant too, if they're just kind of paralyzed in place because they're overwhelmed by all the decisions and all the independent choices they have to make in life suddenly out of the blue, and they're away from the usual safety web that they're used to. So I think the value in finding out information from them is what's keeping them from taking part in things, what's keeping them from investing. What would they need to be able to step outside that room and attend class daily? It's got nothing to do with the courses we offer or
Right.
the way that they're
Okay.
taught. It's all inside of the student, and we have to get that out somehow. And coaching, tutoring is helpful, but tutoring requires an internal energy source to grab and pay attention to what's being done. The coaching and mentoring now, I can see a lot of use in that. I'm not getting rid of all of the second bullet point, but I think we can redesign till the end of the earth, and it won't make a difference with the group of students that we're losing.
Which means the first bullet is actually the student voice, as in what the information we need to get from the student in order to help them, actually ties better with the third bullet. It's providing wraparound services based on what they need, right? Versus what we think they need. More so, like Ed said, it's not asking them about the courses themselves is not
Okay.
really, I think, the focus of any of this.
No, it would be too narrowly focused, Kasha. I think you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. They'd answer just like y'all were saying. I want to get a good grade in the class. I just want to pass.
It's too hard. It goes too fast. I mean,
Right.
how many times have we heard this? That, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but what do they need? Like Ed said, what's stopping them from being successful? Like, I've never asked that question to my students. Maybe that's a bad sign. We have to reevaluate, but you know, asking that direction of question so that we can provide the coaching and the mentoring and whatever other services is where I see it makes more sense.
Right. And we've got a lot of great data on our campus, but, you know, for every student who comes forward and says, hey, you know, I just need more money to pay for college. So think about need-based aid, right? You're also going to have, you know, a million other answers like, you know, I need to stop working so many hours off campus because I can't focus on my schoolwork. I've got to, you know, balance out the fact that I'm caring for a younger sibling while both my parents are working multiple jobs. I'm smoking too much weed, and that impairs, you know, my ability to, you know, show up for class on time, whatever the case may be, right? You're going to get lots of different things that come out in those kinds of responses.
But that can still be useful. We did a high level analysis of why students were withdrawing based on the comments they actually left. They have to check a box, but those are irrelevant. It's based on the comments that they actually left. Again, we don't speak the same language as the students, so they never check the box that they should. But based on analysis of the comments, we are using that information to help alter our advising practices to incorporate things like, if you work 40 hours a week, maybe we are only going to take 2 classes. And like that actually becomes the default. I know this goes against the completion in 4 years and all that stuff, but the reality is our students, at least many of the students we deal with, to try to force them into 12 credit hours or 15 credit hours when they are working 40 hours a week and have kids, that's setting them up for failure. We're not doing our job if that's what we're pushing
Yeah,
on.
it's very short-sighted to force that student to do 12 or 15 hours because they'll get to their degree in 2 years. Well, not if they fail every class that semester, whereas they would have passed 2 if they only took 2.
I agree.
Exactly. 15 to finish was painful.
Wow. Okay, in light of time, I want to shift the conversation just a little bit and talk a little bit about some of the selections you all made in terms of what's going well, what's going right, what's seems promising. So can anyone just find where you put your sticky notes and then just kind of, I don't know, just briefly share why that is of interest to you right now, or what's going on, or you be more specific about.
Is NKU here?
I don't think
No.
Frank was able to make it.
I want to know what a tripwire group is.
Tripwire, those little bitty barriers.
Yeah.
I know when we did our campus visit, that's a really nice system or process that they were talking about in terms of what that is and what it means for them. And they've identified several And I'm not even reading his little thing. I just remember the experience. But yeah, like the holes and, can't do this before you do this, before you do this, and, just all of
Yeah.
that stuff. Things that are just a lot of date driven processes too. All right, who's coming at the gate to tell us why they chose objective number one? Oh, Jeff. Would you like to kick us off?
What do you want me to say?
So I want everybody to kind of look at their little sticky notes and where you place them.
Okay.
And so what's going well, right, promising on your campus as it relates to the bullet point that you put your stickies next to?
Yeah, so I think, because I say we, nerds, really love, our data. And so we've really focused in on a lot of the quantitative data and disaggregating information across the swath of students who are enrolled in our math and reading classes, and being able to do equity analyses. And we've got Power BI dashboards that we've created that helps us really take a more nuanced look at the success rates. We, in particular, we're really excited, because we've had 5 years where we've closed the opportunity gaps for students in our math class, 2 years in reading. But then we also have parallel realities that operate at the same time. We've got, these closed opportunity gaps, but we also discovered the ones who are failing our math class in particular also are from historically marginalized communities, African-American students, low income, and first-gen students. And it's like, well, shit, we've got 2 competing realities. They're both true. So how do we handle that information and then figure out authentically and compassionately how to intervene beyond what we've already done, given how, stretched thin our staff are right now, our instructors are, and do it in a way that doesn't further stigmatize any student population. And we don't have the answers. So, we love the dashboards. It really helps us ensure that we know what's going on. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest successes that we've seen recently in trying to understand our population who's coming through and taking our classes.
All right, who's next? All of this is helpful for me, especially when I go back and look at the recording and make sure that our VP and Dr. Thompson understand where a few of our schools stand right now on these things. And so, but feel free as we kind of learn from each other, if that's not happening, if you want to, ask some questions related to any of this, please do. Okay, anybody else? And Jeff, I know you have more than one thing here, but we can, for the sake of time, go ahead and bounce to someone else. Unless there's something sticking out here that you really want to also offer up.
Well,
Go ahead, Kasha.
I was just going to say, since Brandon's here while we're talking, he could go add in JCTC because it doesn't look like they were able to participate last time. I'm giving Brandon a job. That's all.
Okay, Brandon, you've been voluntold.
Okay, I'll take a look at it and put one in.
All right.
Go ahead, Erica.
Oh, no, that's fine. So I was going to say 2 things. So first of all, when we put these Post-its last time, I totally misunderstood the instructions and put my Post-its at the places I wanted to talk about so I could do better. So just, invert them, but we're not quite. But the one thing that I personally have worked really hard on in the past few years in my position in our math department, we have created our co-requisite courses first for our Math 111 and somewhat more recently for our college algebra. I do a lot with the staffing, and so we are very deliberate who we put in those positions, like who we put in front of those students. We are looking not just for, experienced instructor, but mainly for empathy, patience, encouraging instructors, and they understand what they're getting into. We don't put people there unwillingly. The other thing that I've spent a lot of energy on is communication with advisors. Because we have so many colleges and they all have their own different version of advising teams, and it's very spread out on our campus. Starting with COVID, was invited to online versions of advisor meetings, and then since then in-person versions of advisor meetings. I have taken myself, like, here I am, the math department. Here's our courses. Here's what's new. Here's their prerequisites. Here's who should take these courses. Here who struggles in these courses. And then just open it up as a Q&A for the academic advisors. And many of those groups really appreciate it. And then I'm on their radar. So my inbox is filled with, what do I do with this student? And so that outreach was something they really welcomed, and did make a difference in getting students to at least start in what we predicted was the best place.
Which, what Erica's talking about, I think she just highlighted a really important part that we still struggle with. At least I know we do. I imagine most do. And that is the advising component. The bullet we have here just says developing messages for advisors, but honestly, that's not good enough. It goes back to that, if you're working 40 hours, you shouldn't be taking 15 credit hours. It needs to be stronger. I mean, we need a fully developed advisor training about gateway courses. My technical programs, they're great advising once a student has reached their benchmarks and gotten into their technical programs, which would be like getting into the college of whatever at the university level, right? They're great once they get to that point. But when a student comes in and they're borderline and they need co-requisite classes or developmental classes, they struggle. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I had nothing to say. I'm sorry.
I would just really like to see that stronger. And if there was something we could do at a statewide level, we all have foundational courses. We all have gateway courses. A lot of these gateway courses are the ones that stop students from progressing into the fields that they want to. Advising needs to be prioritized for all of it. But we all have different advising models, so I understand that too.
Great, got it. Okay. Is who else? Let's see. Is Sky here? I can't remember. Okay, maybe
I'm
not.
from Sky, but I wasn't the one that was here last month that put the post.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's all right. Did you want to speak to a success related to anything within bullet 2? I know bullet number 2 under objective number 2, that is.
Okay. Well, we're doing a quality enhancement plan. This, of course, is identifying math. So, but we're doing this with writing. And so I'm the director of our learning commons. So it's library and tutoring services. And both for math and English, the tutors are really trying to partner with the faculty in those to support those students. And so it's been a lot of marketing, a lot of visiting classrooms, visiting faculty, and pulling a lot of data to show so that when students come to us and get help, they're more successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we just keep working on it.
Mm-hmm. Great. And if you want to put a sticky somewhere else that you feel is winning
Okay.
on the campus that they did not, feel free. Feel free to do
Okay.
that. Okay. Yeah, I keep looking. All right. Brandon, what you wanna speak to objective 3, whatever you're looking at there?
Sure, that's been kind of a mixed bag for us lately. We have spent a lot of time kind of first with the move to Blackboard Ultra. We made that move, and then kind of with the online training back to with COVID starting a few years ago. And we spent a lot of time kind of developing master shells for our courses and professional learning communities to store projects, tests, activities, things like that. And we put a lot of work into this. I think when we have a new adjunct or a new professor, it's great to have those resources, but I still feel like most of that's not getting utilized and everybody's still kind of doing their own thing. So it's like, well, we've made some good efforts into making these things available, but they're not easily accessible and we're not having a lot of people use them. So kind of mixed success there.
Got it. Great. Thank you. And if you see anything else you want to plug.
When you say not easily accessible, Brandon, where's all this stuff housed?
So a lot of it is within Blackboard and the professional learning community that we put together. And let's say you're looking for an activity on logarithms. You know, how do you organize it? Do you go look in Math 150 first, college algebra? Do it's just kind of difficult if you're looking for a worksheet versus a quiz versus an activity. You know, it's just not super well organized. And, there's no, at least not that I know of, there's no good way to search things within the Blackboard shell. So it's just kind of like, it's just all out there in the ether. And if you want to go digging for it, you can probably find a really good activity or a quiz or worksheet to use, but it's just kind of difficult to navigate. And I've been thinking about maybe looking for somewhere else to store all those things, but that's going to be a massive project that I don't know that I have time to take on right now.
I know you've got Teams because you're over there. A team site's going to be searchable and have user access. Just
I think we're headed towards SharePoint and stuff like that, which
they're related.
Yeah. And I personally like OneNote a lot, and I'm trying to get my colleagues on board with that, but that's that's within the Office suite also. So, that's and then using Teams instead of Blackboard Collaborate for classes. Yeah, I'm definitely headed that way myself and just trying to drag people along with me.
And yeah. I think the providing professional development, the bullet that we're talking about, is only as effective as, I guess, administration emphasizes it. Especially with all the adjuncts and everything. I'm not saying people aren't doing their jobs, and I'm not saying people don't want to do well. They do. But at least our realities, it takes a lot of time. So they need a little encouragement. And a nice way to store it.
Well, thank you all for sharing some of the wins. I think we kind of hit on this maybe once or twice with some comments, but what's missing? Like, as you continue to see this information here, I love the fix that we talked about for this one, so I'll definitely be taking that back to Allison. But what's missing, or if there's something else that needs a fix, we need to be more deliberate in one way or another. I think there was a comment about bullet number 2, maybe breaking that out. Okay, but any other thoughts? I'll be quiet and let y'all process.
I think bullet 2, it's about the teaching, but it's also about the support. I guess that's why it feels so loaded. It's on both sides. It's got how we are incorporating evidence-based strategies to increase student success and, redesigning and placement, so that's all on the front side. But then you have the integrating tutoring, coaching, and mentoring. Well, that's a student support or academic support aspect. So that's a bit I
Okay.
understand whoever said it was dense. It is dense.
This is almost off topic, but I would think will be interesting to interview the coaches and the student coaches and the mentors to see what they find lacking in the students, where they see the students not quite stepping up to the plate. Is it that they can't understand it, or is it that they just don't have seem to bring the energy to it, or 1,000 other things? Do they have a child at home they're taking care of? What are they seeing? We can probably get much better formulated answers from them, and we have access to them. I'm still trying to contact a student who dropped my course to find out more information, and unless I shadow them at their other courses when they get out of the class, I probably won't see them. But the coaches we could see.
Mhm. Okay, that's a nice little segue then for this a final question I was going to throw out after. Let me come off of share and ask you all. So in December, we will still meet. I can't think of the date off the top of my head, but I'm wondering if Dr. Ed, what you're alluding to maybe makes me think about what the faculty fellows for this group talked about before, and not necessarily around the unsuccessful student, because who wants to, talk about their problems like that, but some older successful students who had unsuccessful experiences. I don't know, is it worth bringing or finding some of those students to be with us at our next meetup? I think we were moving in that direction. We just never put a bow on it, but help me understand we can beat this to death only so long. What's our next move in terms of, thinking about, what this really feels like to students? What do we want to hear from them? Do we want a student panel at our next meetup like this?
How we determine which students?
Well, the faculty fellows were saying that they could maybe find one or maybe one student each, since it's 5 of them, and we could invite those students to be with us and talk a little bit about their earlier experiences. Again, not someone who is, going through a rough time right now in a class, but yeah, Frank had some good ideas about that. He's not with us right now.
I'm a little mixed on it, to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
Only from the standpoint that we collect data on why our students fail. And we know it's not because of instructional pedagogies. Typically, our students fail because of 2 factors. Okay. One is they exceed the attendance policy. And we've got a stupid generous policy that allows them to miss a lot of classes and still complete all their work and get a passing grade. The other reason is because they're, for whatever reason, psychosocially just kind of checked out and undermotivated. And I don't know how you fix that, because motivation, if it's not coming internally, there's only so much we can do to, encourage, bribe, cajole to get them to do stuff. And I think part of it just stems from either too many other priorities in their lives, or they're just not ready to be in college. And we know that's a major issue. So I don't know that we're going to discern anything new or different from hearing students on a panel.
Talk about it.
Because they're the ones that had the qualities that the other students are lacking that help them overcome the problem.
Yeah, wrong group then.
Wrong.
Yeah. I was just going to say, go ahead.
I was just going to kind of piggyback on that. And I think we've all heard this anecdotally, and a nice statistic show for y'all out there. The plural of anecdote is data. But we just heard from so many people that the expectations during COVID were lowered significantly, especially in public school systems. And the students that we're getting are just not accustomed to the rigor that we're asking them to perform at. And I think it also plays into what Kasha was saying, that we're speaking a different language than them. Like, When you say, do you have office hours on your schedule? Do your students know what that means? Does that mean that you're sitting around waiting for them to come in and ask questions or not? So I think that, it's kind of twofold, but the expectations definitely need to be set early with our students, because I think they're struggling with that right now.
I'm glad you raised that, Brandon. We built that into not just the beginning of the semester when we teach our classes, but consistently providing reminders both in class verbally and through other mechanisms, including notes, emails, prompts, nudges, all kinds of other stuff that happens electronically, and they still kind of check out and don't respond to it. So we've clarified those expectations. So I think collectively, because I can't imagine that U of L students are going to be any different than anybody else's, including community college students. Young people make the same mistakes, whether they're at, Harvard or if they're at our institutions. That's just, human nature. But, figuring out what's going to be a positive trigger, for our students is really challenging because it's so individualized. But, you hit the nail on the head. They're just not willing in a lot of ways to rebound from those lowered expectations during COVID and pony up and do some of the work. And it's a variety of reasons that contribute to that. And it's challenging for them. It's challenging and frustrating for us.
Yeah. I think what I wanted to contribute there is, and I've had this conversation with like 3 or 4 different groups of colleagues all day. And so I'm not sure what's special about today. But like, when I talked about deliberately putting careful faculty in front of our most vulnerable students, right now, at least for the people I'm around, there's a lot of burnout. We are exhausted just in a different way than like even, 5 years ago. And so I would love to have a real conversation about high impact practices, that the most efficient ones that we can come up with. Like, how do we give the best we can to these vulnerable students and keep motivating them and encouraging them, when at the same time, like, all the people I'm trying to support in my faculty are about used up and done and counting days till the end of the semester. Like, we can't, we can be cheerleaders when we're right in front of them, but it feels dishonest at times, because when I walk away, I'm like, oh my God. So I think if we kind of had a real conversation about like, how are we supporting our faculty to give exactly that support to our vulnerable students, I think they're tied. I think that they can sense our exhaustion even when we're doing our best.
And to piggyback on that, I would also love to hear a more in-depth conversation to help relieve some of that on what makes a successful success coaching, mentoring, peer coaching, what components make a successful program? Because if students helping other students, or official success coaches, or whatever you want to call them, can help ease some of that burden off the faculty. So like I said, I want to hear both sides, because I'm not sure I can change the expectations on the faculty. We're restricted on that. But if we can provide them additional support, which is what Erica was saying, how do we get that additional support to help them?
Can I just share quickly? So my daughter's a junior at Bellarmine, and she was one of those folks that in her freshman year got a D in whatever math class she was in. I forget what it was. And so I said, Leah, what are the three things that could have made a difference? Can you just tell me what was going on? And what we found out was there was no relationship with the faculty member. So I could see how a TA or another graduate peer or something like that could have made that difference for her. And because she didn't have a relationship, she really didn't know that she didn't have to be in the math class thinking that she kind of had to know it all, because she came from a high school that ranked whatever, right? So again, this is her and all her trying to figure it out. And the third thing was, oh gosh, what was it? Too early. You know, she just didn't understand why she had to be put in a math class at 8 when that really just wasn't her vibe. But she was kind of forced into. So all three of those little prongs, you know, contributed to how she ended up. And so it makes me go back to that whole relationship rich education. And we're bringing Dr. Felton in, who authored that material. He's going to be at the Student Success Summit. So I do have an announcement about that. Okay, I'm sorry. I just thought that was a good little wedge to share that experience. Miss Brenda, you have something?
Well, I listen to everybody, a lot of stuff that people said I agree with. The exhaustion this semester, my Math 150 course, my college algebra online, it's taking a lot out of me. You know, you call students, I make extra videos, I call every student in all my classes and talk to them, offer my services to them. They still don't reach out. They miss tests. They don't take a test. You call them, extend it, you put extensions, they still don't take the test. And you try to, what can you do at that point? You're exhausted because you're calling every student, you're talking to them, you email them constantly, document them, you call them, they hang up on you when they find out who you are. So it's like, what can you, at that point, you're trying to help them, but at that point, when did you say, I gotta move on? At some point, you have to say, I got to move on. But I try not to do that. But I try to get all my student benefit of doubt and help them. Because a lot of them, when I do talk to them, they have overload. They have, like I heard, 2 kids, 2 jobs, no time, no support at home. They can't take the test. They got excuses, as whoever advised them take 4 classes shouldn't advise them on those 4 classes. So it's a combination of that too. Because one student said, I asked him, who told you to take all these classes? He said, my advisor. I said, but you don't have time for all these classes. He said, I dropped 1. I got a dean the other already, because, so he has 2 left, my class and other class. So it's ridiculous. So when we advise students for the math portion at our school, because I know the GPA is a high push now, but the GPA doesn't show some of their skills they lack in math. So they got a 3.8 GPA, don't mean they should get a college algebra course right now. They should be in a remedial class right now. I don't know. And that's what's happening at our school. A lot of kids are placed in college algebra or in English 101 when they should not be taking English 101. It should be a reading course first. But they went by their GPA. So you're placing these harder courses and the kids get frustrated and they get burnt out and they're upset now because they can't do the material, but we put them in those courses. So we're kind of at fault too, because you put them in those courses. So it's like a domino effect. I don't know. How can we resolve this, especially after COVID? I'm sorry, because some of my students want me to do overs, or they don't think they have to take tests all the time. Why not take a test? In high school, we didn't have to take it. We didn't want to take a test. I got 50%, regardless what I did on it. They passed it regardless. So they come to college with that mentality that I can miss a test. I can still pass this course. I got 100 on my homework, but so I should have an A. I got 100 on my homework. I just failed the test. So why don't I have an A? That's what we're dealing with.
Wow. Jennifer?
So I just wanted to kind of combine what both of you all were just saying, that I think online is a big issue because it does not allow students to build that relationship with instructors. No matter how hard I try as an instructor, like just, we're talking here today, but it's not the same as meeting in person. It's not the same as spending an hour. You don't chat before class. You don't do any of that stuff. And then the flip side of that is because we don't have those and we're trying to get in contact with these students, it causes burnout for the instructor because we're having to do so much more above and beyond with those individual students than we would do in a classroom. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And thankfully, I know at Bluegrass, we're starting to see more and more students realize this themselves and want to come back to class. So we're starting to have to offer more on-campus sections of classes, which is really good. I just, we still are really heavy on online, and I think that's an issue.
Math, we're not seeing the increase in all subjects to come back.
Well, that's
to
true.
campus. Math, they're realizing it, but unfortunately they realize it a semester too late. So they have to fail their first semester math class, recognize that this is not the way they could possibly be successful in math, and then they come back to the campus. If we
Yes.
can't get them started correctly, then, well, that partly contributes to the success rates and lack thereof that we see. They do learn, but they have to fail, like literally fail first.
Wow.
I think it's easier online sometimes, the math. I think it'd be easier for some reason.
They learn pretty quick. That's not the case.
Jeff, you want to close us out with the last comment here? And then I have an announcement. And
Yeah, we made an unpopular choice, especially for advisors. They're really not fond of it, but we have restricted our few sections of online Math Emporium to traditional distance ed students. If your butt is on campus, your butt's in the classroom, because we know they don't pass when they're online. And for so many traditional students, we need to have them in the classroom. There's a greater degree of accountability that way, both for the student themselves and in ensuring that we're doing everything possible to follow our own data and best practices. And you know, advisors may not like it, you know, because right now they're on a kick with, you know, you're not being student success oriented. I'm like, yeah, bullshit. We are student success oriented. We're focusing in on the success and the data that, you know, shows in person does better. And I think we have to. I think we have to leverage that as much as we do, you know, the instructor's own intuition and insights on what they're seeing day in and day out in the classroom, and sharing those personal stories, you know, from conversations they have with their students. If we don't, we're being irresponsible.
And I know you want to move on, but he has the advantage of being at a university with a residential program.
Yep.
We're at the community college. We get a report weekly on how many of our students are taking online classes at another KCTCS institution and what we can do about it, because we're all in competition with each other.
And so you have no bandwidth because you're already overextended.
Yes. So we don't even have the luxury, unless we got all 16 colleges to finally agree to not offer developmental reading online. I don't have a choice because I'm in competition with them. So
I agree.
Thank you. This is a hot point for me.
Yeah. And with that,
none of us have strong opinions on these calls.
I just love y'all. And Brandon in the chat, I love how you said in the before times. Is that how we're talking about it now? In the before times. I like that. But
yes, that's standard nomenclature for me. That's definitely it's kind of like BC and AD. It's like in the before times.
That
before COVID and after that.
Before COVID, yeah.
Man, okay. Well, we're a couple minutes over, but thank you for that time. Again, I will put this in an email. Now I might have to take an extra day because I have to go through communications and get some approvals, because this has to be, it's being recorded, of course, but we have to go through them, the uploads and downloads and creating YouTube and all of these things. So y'all will see this next week, as well as all the folks who get my information but aren't able to attend. Okay, any other final wrap-up announcements, or someone really needs to get something off of? Okay, I think we get it all already. All right, yes, happy Friday, Junior. So see y'all when I see y'all probably in your inbox. All right, everybody have a great day.